Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session on strategic security and tactical counter-espionage in a post-pandemic world. My name is Dr. Lisa Kane. I am an associate professor at the Chaplin School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, and I am one of the conference research chairs for this extraordinary GLOSERV conference that not only offers you the opportunity to meet incredible, worldly renowned speakers, but also to earn a certificate in the process. Today, I have the distinct honor and privilege to be the moderator for this session, and it is with Mr. Luke Bencie. Welcome, Luke.
Hi, good morning. Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We are so thrilled to have you. I'm going to give a brief introduction as to who you are. Luke Bencie is the Managing Director of Security Management International, SMI, and the author of Among Enemies, Counter-Espionage for the Business Traveler, Global Security Consulting, How to Build a Thriving International Practice, The Clandestine Consultant, Kings, Sheiks, Warlords, and Dictators, and the CARVER, Target Analysis and Vulnerability Assessment Methodology, a practical guide for evaluating security vulnerabilities. Mr. Bencie has been a consultant to the U.S. Department of State, U.S. Department of Defense, Fortune 500 companies, as well as foreign governments. He has worked in over 100 countries and has trained thousands of police, intelligence, and military officers in the U.S. and abroad in the fields of counterterrorism, counterintelligence, crisis management, and target analysis vulnerability assessments. Prior to establishing SMI, Mr. Bencie was a senior security consultant for Raytheon Company in the Intelligence and Information Systems Division. Mr. Bencie also previously served on the U.S. Department of State's Foreign Emergency Support Team. In this capacity, he was responsible for immediately responding to terrorist attacks carried out against U.S. targets overseas, subsequently serving in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and other global hotspots. It is such an honor and a privilege to have someone so rich in this information in this area, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa, and thank you everybody who's on the webinar today, and Jihan and everyone for inviting me as well. We had a small technical glitch before getting started here. I'm going to make sure I look at the right screen here. So I don't have my slides to be able to show to you, but I think I'll be able to describe them hopefully pretty vividly, and it all makes sense to everybody out there. Now, the title of my talk is kind of a long one: Strategic Security and Tactical Counter-Espionage in a Post-Pandemic World. And you're probably there saying, what does this mean? How does this relate to GLOSERV? And more importantly, how does it apply to me? You're probably saying out there. So let me explain a little bit more in depth about what I'll be talking about on the call here this morning. So as Lisa mentioned, let me clarify kind of what my background is. So I'm an intelligence officer by trade. I had about a dozen years with the intelligence community, and then spun off to my own private security consulting practice in Washington, D.C. So I've written a lot of books on the subject. I've been to 141 countries out there. So out of the 195 countries in the world, I've been to 141 of them. I would have tried to up my totals, but the pandemic slowed me down. In fact, my last international trip was right before the pandemic, was actually to Italy. So I know the folks there in Naples are there. So we wish you all the best, and thanks, and hope to be back over there soon to see you. So anyway, with that as a background, let me just describe briefly what I will be touching on today. And I'll go through this and I'll open it up to questions. Since we don't have slides, it'll be a little bit more informal, and certainly welcome questions in the text box or whatever it may be. But I want to focus on how espionage, and people don't think about espionage in their daily life, but how espionage provides a real threat to the retail industry, to the service industry, to the hospitality industry, to all industries in our post-pandemic world. I mean, it was something before, but during the pandemic and now post-pandemic, those threats to your business, your organizations, whatever it may be, are actually going to sadly increase. So I'm going to talk about what those threats are, and I'm going to talk about tactics that you can use for yourself, for your family, for your organization, to better protect yourself and your intellectual property. I'm going to give you a fun little case study of an operation we did, because I know when I start giving this presentation, a lot of people say, "No way, that really doesn't happen in the real world." And so I'll give you a little case study of something that we did for infiltrating a business to see how it's actually done, to give you a sneak peek behind the scenes of how people will infiltrate your business, your organization, your family's private matters for that. And then we'll talk about briefly a strategy or a security plan that you can have to better protect yourself. So with that, what I'll do is I'll just start going through the presentation. Again, if anybody has any questions as we go along, feel free to throw it into the chat box. Maybe every 15 minutes or so, I'll stop and ask if there's any questions. So if that sounds good for everybody, I'll proceed. All right. So to get started, you can't talk about strategy, you can't talk about espionage, without going back and talking to the greatest master of them all, who at least people in my industry, in the intelligence world, consider to be the gold standard, and that is the Chinese general from 2,000 years ago, Sun Tzu. And if you remember the manifesto, The Art of War, that was written by the famous Chinese general, you may have certainly heard of it or seen it in movies, whatever it is. But Sun Tzu so famously said that knowledge of the enemy's disposition can only be obtained through other men. So that was 2,500 years ago. What does that mean, and how does that apply to you today? Well, what it means is that the best way to glean information, to glean secrets, intellectual property, whatever that may be, is from other human beings, and not necessarily hacking or anything, but still your traditional face-to-face methods that are used. Now, I wrote a book many years ago. In fact, it was my first book about 9 years ago that I wrote that became very popular in the security industry and the travel industry. It was called Among Enemies, Counter-Espionage for the Business Traveler. And a lot of people don't know what I meant by counter-espionage. If you're not from the military or intel world or law enforcement, you may not know what the term counter-espionage actually means. Well, counter-espionage means it's protective or defensive measures that you can take. And it was something that was coined by the former CIA director, Allen Dulles. Now, if any of you out there are old enough to remember the movie Wall Street with Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen way back in the 80s, great movie, there was a classic line from the actor in that, Michael Douglas, and he had the famous line, "Greed is good." Well, there was a much more applicable line in that movie that holds true today, other than "greed is good," and that is a line that Michael Douglas said, where he said, "The most valuable commodity I know of is information." Now, I want you to think about this for a minute, at least for those of you who are in the United States. We as Americans, we have sort of ceased in the last 50 years of being an industrial nation. We don't really make a lot of things anymore. Sure, we make cars and stuff, but a lot of that, most of that, even our technology, is produced overseas. The thing that we make these days is information, and hence the most valuable commodity that we have as Americans. Now, in our world of protecting intellectual property, of protecting technology and secrets, we try to keep, sadly, a 6-month advantage over competition. That's it. 6 months. If you can stay 6 months ahead of your business competitors, you're doing pretty well in today's hyper-competitive business espionage world that's out there. And when I talk and I give this speech about espionage and things of that nature, immediately everybody's thought process goes towards hacking. Oh, I'm going to get hacked and all of these things. And it's all cyber these days. It's all, somebody's getting in through the back door and all of that. And I know that your keynote today, Chuck Brooks, who's a friend of mine, and is you have the absolute expert in the tech field addressing that. So I'm only going to touch on hacking, very, very small here. And the thing that I will tell all of you out there about the threat of hacking is that there's only three types of people in this world: those who've been hacked, those who are yet to be hacked, and those of you out there who are being hacked right now and you don't even know it. So that's kind of where we stand with that. I'm gonna leave the rest to Chuck to scare you on that. I'm gonna stay in my lane today of espionage, particularly human espionage. But just so we're all on the same page, because I know we have well over 1,000 people on the call. Let's get us all on the same page of what the definition of espionage actually is. So when I talk about espionage, I am talking about economic and industrial espionage. So what does that mean? So economic espionage, just for those of you who aren't from a spy world, economic espionage basically means that is espionage being conducted with the hand or with the assistance of a foreign government body. A foreign intelligence service is assisting with the theft of your intellectual property secrets. Industrial espionage is slightly different. Industrial espionage means that there's a theft or removal of trade secrets, or copying of these, whatever it may be. However, there's no foreign involvement. It's basically your business competitors are trying to steal or learn your particular your trade secrets, essentially, without the involvement of a foreign body in there. Now, how big is this problem? Why are we even talking about this? Why is this something that's even been brought to the attention of GLOSERV? Well, the reason being is, these are some shocking statistics. The U.S. Congress put together a few years ago, and they've subsequently done it every 5 years, a committee called the Intellectual Property Commission Report, which is done also in conjunction with our FBI. It says that $600 billion with a B, $600 billion worth of private sector intellectual property and trade secrets are stolen every single year, just from the United States. Now, that is what's documented as stolen. The FBI actually estimates that number is about over $1 trillion. And you say, well, how the heck do you get $1 trillion worth of stolen secrets? I mean, that's the GDP of a lot of countries out there. And what it basically means is that you've bid on a proposal, somebody's seen your proposal. You've come up with a R&D that has been stolen, siphoned off, somebody's rolled it out first. Somebody has undercut you. An employee has left your company and taken their trade secrets to your competitor because they've been hired away. That's how the number is factored in there. In the United States, 30%, at least 1/3 of all jobs in the United States have to deal with sensitive intellectual property that would be of trade secret value to a competitor, a business competitor, or to a foreign nation. Now, let me give you a few examples of this. And again, I can't show you my screens here, but I had some compare and contrast pictures of some products that were stolen. I start off with the space shuttle, the famous U.S. space shuttle by NASA. The Soviets back in the day stole the plans, and they built their own version of the Soviet-born orbiter, exact copy. A lot similar with our jets, our destroyer-class ships, and things of that nature. And people say to me, "Well, Luke, you're talking military secrets." I'm in the service industry. I don't go to China or Iran or Russia or any of these countries. I go to London on business trips. I deal in the hospitality industry. I deal in a different type of service industry where I'm not dealing with classified government secrets. And my response to you is, okay, but there's a lot of private sector companies. Let me name a few of them for you: Ford, Bristol Myers Squibb, Dow Corning, IBM, Lockheed Martin, Apple, ExxonMobil, Boeing, GM, Coca-Cola, DuPont, Sony Pictures, Microsoft, Intel, Honeywell, Google, Gillette razors. Let's think about this. You work for the razor company. How many of you guys out on the webinar today? How many of you guys shave with a Bic Mach 4, Mach 3 razor. I know I did, and maybe some of you ladies did. Maybe you shaved your legs with it this morning. Well, did you know that that billion-dollar product, the blueprints back in 1997 were stolen of that very initial model and was tried to be sold off to their competitor, BIC. And luckily, the very moral and ethical CEO of BIC said, hey, we don't buy stolen competitor plans, but I think BIC might be out of business these days while Gillette's $1 billion company. So it happens even at the smallest level, even if you think it doesn't apply to you, most likely it probably does. So how do these trade secrets, how do they get out? How does the bad guy, how do the competitors get them? Well, there's many ways that this can happen. It can happen through opportunists. It can happen through your hackers, through your business competitors, through foreign governments. But a lot of times it happens just through sloppiness, employee sloppiness, or your own personal sloppiness as a business person, as a traveler, whatever the case may be. So let me give you a couple examples of this. So did you know that a recent study that was done said that 59% of employees who leave a company to go to another company, 59% of them have admitted to downloading on purpose files, templates, proposals, research white papers, whatever it is that was deemed sensitive to their company. They've secretly downloaded that and taken it with them to their next job so they can appear brighter and more useful in their next career. 59%. Only 13% of people do that by accident. But when asked about it, when people were confronted on why did you steal this? I've had it happen in my own company. I've had people try to steal secrets from my own company, employees that have left. And the 50-50 answer is everybody else is doing it. I thought, why not me? So 50% of your employees, I don't want to cast a dark net on your employees out there, but there's a good chance that people who are leaving your organization, they've already downloaded things to take with them to their next job to appear to be that much savvier, let's say. Now, there's other people who do it completely by accident, and everybody's done this, sadly, most everybody, and that's we've accidentally clicked on a link on some kind of scam that we didn't think was a scam. We fell for something. That's a great way to get people into your system. And these are not advanced foreign governments on a lot of cases. It could just be university students who are very clever with being able to create dummy ads and emails and things of that nature. So it does happen. But if we talk about who are the big offenders, we're talking about state-sponsored actors. And when we talk about state-sponsored actors, we are talking about foreign intelligence services that have organizations or divisions or units set up specifically to capture intellectual property of businesses, just business intelligence. And it doesn't have to be some defense contractor thing. It could be the simplest thing. It would shock you how simple some of these things are. And I'll give you a few examples. So just another fun fact out there. Did you know that right now there are 25 foreign governments that actively target the United States for intellectual property theft? Meaning that an intelligence unit, a division within an intelligence service, has been set up with the sole purpose of collecting just American intellectual property. Did you know that 1 out of every 4 cases that the FBI handles right now, 1 out of every 4, has to do with economic espionage that has come from China? 1 out of every 4 cases. That's thousands of cases. There are 56 field offices in the United States for the FBI. The FBI has 56 offices across the US. All 56 of them have open cases right now on Chinese economic espionage. Now, who's the most targeted? At least in the United States, it's pretty easy. It's Washington, D.C. because of defense contractor secrets. And then the other one, no surprise here as well, is Silicon Valley. So that's what you're looking for. So if you're in the tech field, you're in the contractor field, your odds are slightly higher. And if you don't believe me, I mean, there's been other foreign governments that to admit to this. I mean, in the United States, we have a relationship with our old, longtime allies, the French. And I apologize if we have any French folks on the call right now, but the French intelligence service, the DGSE, has admitted on numerous occasions, they've come out to the old director back in the 80s and 90s, Pierre Marion, used to say, hey, you know, espionage, economic espionage, it's essential. It's essential for France to keep abreast of international commerce and technology. So, of course, it's directed at, operations against the United States. And even though we may be allies, government, geopolitical allies, military allies, we are still all economic competitors. So it really has become the new, I don't want to say Cold War, but it really has become the antithesis of what spying is these days. And, you know, we talk about China, Russia, Iran. I'll talk about them, don't worry. But I want to talk just a second about North Korea. North Korea, there was an article that came out just last week in the New Yorker, which I thought was an excellent piece. North Korea steals $2 billion a year worth of intellectual property from all over the world, all over the world. They do this through hacking. They are brilliant hackers. The North Koreans are better hackers than the Russians. The Russians would probably hate me saying that, but it's true. The North Koreans are phenomenal. Chuck Brooks can talk about that a little bit later, but they're very good despite their lack of power, let's say, in the country. They're very good at illicit goods sales. So again, retail goods, you know as well as I do, the counterfeit problem across the globe. It's massive. The sale of illicit goods, the sale and the dealing, the trade of counterfeit currency is huge by the North Koreans. Black market sales is huge, is a huge way that the North Koreans make revenue. And they do this through their underworld ties with the mafia. In fact, that article I was referencing mentions how the North Koreans work with the Yakuza, the Japanese mafia, in order to, they did a huge scam where they were scamming ATM machines at 7-Eleven, made something like $37 million in a day, just scamming, ATM cards. So it is a big problem, and it is a certain capability. Let me pause for a second. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to jump in? I don't see anything in the chat box, or Lisa, if there's something I'm missing, if you want to jump in with anything there.
Sure, Luke. Well, thank you so much. This has been fascinating so far. Very eye-opening, a little scary, but really enriching. I actually have a question myself. You mentioned, I know that there are so many counterfeit goods. I mean, personally, I think of, handbags and things of that nature in terms of retail management. But also, you mentioned currency, and I was wondering how cryptocurrencies, which are unregulated, then sort of play a role in all of this equation, because it seems to me that would really confound the issue. And maybe I'm off base.
No. Awesome question with that. So cryptocurrencies is the new, I don't know if you want to call it Internet 3.0, let's say. I mean, the Internet was 1.0, social media was 2.0, cryptocurrencies and this new NFTs that are coming out, that'll be 3.0. But with cryptocurrency, the concept behind it is the blockchain provides you security, which again, if we're talking about retail, is a great thing. What a great way to ensure that your products are tracked and moving. I mean, blockchain is really going to be the future of retail. I think it's going to be the future of everything, to be honest. However, that being said, there are so many people out there right now selling fake Ethereum accounts and fake access to the latest and greatest new cryptocurrency that's rolling into the market and all of that. So I think the scammers maybe not necessarily will be within the blockchain, but they will be scamming and selling access to the blockchain. I think that's what they're kind of targeting now. But yes, an awesome question. I think that is really going to be the future. I think it's going to be a nice safety precaution for the retail industry. And I don't know how many of the the viewers out there are currently dealing with, or they have their products or retail within a blockchain system. But I know that, again, Chuck, the resident expert, will be up in probably an hour and can address those maybe a little bit more intelligently than I can.
Well, thank you so much for that answer, Luke. That's actually really helpful. I was just very curious about that. We do actually have another question from our audience. They want to know, is business espionage a danger for small businesses?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. In fact, I'm glad you said that. Let me tell you exactly what foreign intelligence services are doing for small businesses. So in my world of defense contracting now, what usually happens, let's say you've got a big old company like a Lockheed Martin, a Raytheon, a Boeing, SAIC, any of these big companies. Well, all of these companies have great security. Fantastic. They've got former FBI, NSA guys as their CISO. They're being attacked all the time. They got big bucks to spend on security. What people forget is that the overwhelming majority of these large government contracts, even though that they may be acquired by a large Fortune 100 defense contractor, every single one of them subcontracts down other work. A lot of this work goes to, 8A companies. It may go to the disadvantaged veterans and things like that. Well, a lot of these smaller organizations do not have the infrastructure in place to be able to have proper cyber hygiene, security protocols, and all these things. So if you're a foreign government, it's much easier to penetrate a subcontracted small business on a government contract or a contract that is part of a larger Fortune 500 contract than it is sometimes of directly going in and targeting a Fortune 500. So if any of you out there provide retail services or anything to a larger conglomerate, you better rest assured that you are a much easier, you're low-hanging fruit to an intelligence service. That's the way you need to think of yourself. Your easy access to a bigger prey.
Thank you for answering that. That's important to keep in mind. We do have another question. What are some of the best practices for professionals when they travel?
I'm glad you said that. I'm actually going to touch on that in about 5 minutes. So hold that thought. Whoever asked a great question, I'm actually going to walk through a scenario for all of us taking a fictitious trip of things to look out for and good practices or good behaviors to practice. So I'm going to touch on that in a second. So great question.
Fantastic. Well, we'll let you take the stage then and tell us the case, and we look forward to hearing all about it.
Absolutely. So let me jump back into this, and I would be remiss if I did not talk about China. And if there's folks from China on the phone or on the line, I apologize now. Don't worry, I'll do some self-deprecating humor to the United States in just a second, so I'm not picking on you. But of the $1 trillion that the FBI claims is stolen every year through economic espionage, upwards, and this is the FBI, so don't come throwing barbs at Luke here, 87% is said to come from Chinese hacking. So China is the great offender in the world when it comes to this. Let me just give you a simpler example. Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola right now. You think Coca-Cola? What are they trying to steal? Coke's secret formula? I thought that was in a vault in Atlanta in their headquarters. Well, think about this. Coca-Cola, the lining that goes inside of a Coca-Cola can, that was worth $120 million in intellectual secrets to the Coca-Cola company. There was an attempted attack. It was a gentleman, his name was, and I'll butcher this name, Ziaran. He stole $120 million worth of Coca-Cola intellectual property in return for what he believed was going to be a reward from what China has is called the 1,000 Talents program. If you haven't heard of the 1,000 Talents program, it's pretty prevalent. It's been around for a long time, although now it's under a new name. Excuse me. So the 1,000 Talents program is basically a program set up by the Ministry of State Security in China, which basically says, all of you billions of citizens, go forth, conquer. As you go around the world, please bring back intellectual property. that will be benefit to our country, and in return you will be rewarded financially or with academic for your kids will go to college, whatever the case may be. The prize is about average $10,000 if you can bring back something of value or whatever. And again, this is not new. This is something that's been around. It actually goes back to the former communist chairman Deng Xiaoping. Back and actually it was in 1986. In fact, it was the month of March 1986, because the name of the program is the China 863 program, 1986, month of March. And basically it was Deng Xiaoping's way, his vision for bringing China basically make China a superpower. Deng Xiaoping did his best to make China a superpower using what they call the 24 character strategy, or the 863 program, which is basically, why waste all this time with R&D and all of that? Let's just go out and steal it. And that's probably the simplest terms that I can use for that. Again, the cases for this are numerous. I apologize if this maybe rubs people the wrong way, but I'm just stating fact here. Tesla, with their battery-powered pack, their AI source code was stolen. And there's a big running lawsuit. You can look all this up. This isn't just me making, subjective comments. This is all, you can look this in yourself, do your research. China has the Xiaopeng motors, basically China's version of electric car. So there have been documented cases and ongoing lawsuits and things. Apple has their own car right now, electric car. Those classified documents have been stolen as well. So it is a real thing. Now, as I promised, I do not want to be anti-China, because a lot of us do, but I do business in China. I do a lot of business in China. I I use Alibaba all the time. But so let me to our friends out there, to assure you that I'm not picking on you, a funny story. In 2007, Jiang Zemin was the president, the premier, whatever, of China, and he wanted to get his own version of Air Force One, basically a Chinese Air Force One, a big plane. So they ordered from Boeing a 767. And they ordered from Seattle. That's where Boeing's headquarters is. They ordered the 767. The 767 was then flown down to, I believe it was like Houston or somewhere in Texas. And when it went down to Texas, it was going to be retrofitted, with all the fixings of a president, the big plush leather seats, the gold toilet, all that kind of stuff that would go in an airplane. And the Chinese, they were the ones who were going to retrofit it, and they had their security team and everything watching to make sure no funny business happened. And so anyway, they flew the plane after it was retrofitted back to Beijing. And what do you think the first thing the Chinese government did? Well, so they swept it, right? Swept it for bugs, for audio devices, video devices, and things like that. So the Chinese government claimed that they discovered 27 audio devices that had been secretly implanted into the airplane. And the funny thing is, I gave this talk years ago, and I used this example at the meeting organization called AFIO, the Association of Foreign Intelligence Officers. So I had a room of 500 retired CIA and FBI agents and things, and I said that I used this example, 27 audio devices discovered, and a guy from the back of the room yells out, "Great! They didn't find the other 12." So it was the point I'm trying to make here in a very humorous way is this goes on all the time, and most of us as business travelers, as business owners, we are collateral damage in an ongoing war of spying, corporate spying that's going on around the globe. So just we have to learn to deal with it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to answer whoever asked that wonderful question about what we can do to protect ourselves. Let's talk about that now. So what let's do in our mind, I had slides for this, but again, I think you guys can visualize where I'm going with it. Let's pretend that you have to take a trip. You're going to take a trip to pick a country, India, doesn't matter where. You're going to take a trip to India. So what's the first thing a lot of us do, right? We jump on Google. Google, usually 85% of all business dealings start with a Google search. So we go to Google and we start looking around, start looking at flights, start looking at hotels and things like this. Well, again, all of those IP addresses, all of those searches, they're all tracked. And it's not just by foreign intelligence service. My God, people talk about the National Security Agency, the NSA here in the United States. Let me tell you something. Facebook and Google has more demographic information on you than probably the NSA does. So you start booking your flight, but a lot of people start making these poor decisions, and they start looking at conferences. Let's say this conference was actually held live in Naples. A lot of people start going online into LinkedIn and things and say, oh, I'm going to be at this conference on these dates. Anybody going to be there? Anybody want to meet up for business? Things like that. So, hey, that's good common business sense. You want to make some connections. You want to network. But you just have to bear in mind that there are intel services, the Chinese, the North Koreans, the Russians, they all use LinkedIn. They all use LinkedIn. They're all on it. They've all got dummy accounts. They're looking at anybody and where they're going and what conferences are coming up. In fact, conferences, trade shows, it used to be anytime that there's a trade show that deals with anything related to any kind of technology or hardware, the assessment, and again, don't say I'm quoting the U.S. government or anybody else on this. This is just Luke speaking, but there was estimates that 1 out of every 4 people at a trade show that dealt with serious technology or software or military or anything like that, 1 out of every 4 people at the trade show was an intelligence officer. So that's who you're mingling with at the bars and things like that. So you're on your trip and you get on the airplane and you're flying business class. And I always like to tell the story or the urban legend that back in the days in the 80s or even the 90s when there was the Concorde, people would claim that the French Concorde, every seat was bugged, or every seat in business class or first class on Air France was bugged with audio devices, or that there would always be one flight attendant who really wasn't a flight attendant. She was a pretty intelligence officer who would find the most important guy there and cozy up to him and say, "Oh, where are you staying? Oh, you're at the Ritz. What a coincidence. I'm staying at the Ritz." And you kind of get the idea of what happens next. Urban legend, truth, I don't know. You'd have to ask the French intelligence service on that one. I know I've tried with a response of big smiles, but there is something that you really should be aware of when you fly on an airplane, and that is the use of Wi-Fi on an airplane. Unless you are using a VPN, let's be very clear. If you're using an in-flight Wi-Fi, there is a very good chance, even if you're sitting up in business class, that the guy in 36B is seeing your screen and reading what you're reading, because you're in a very enclosed space there, and the security firewalls aren't that great on an airplane. So be sure, if you are working on a proposal or anything like that, or you're drafting emails, maybe do it with your Wi-Fi off, or if you do have to send an email. I never send emails on an airplane. Never. I just wait till I land. I'll draft everything with the Wi-Fi off, but as soon as I land, then I'll send it when I'm behind a good firewall or have a VPN. So keep that in mind. Something else about travelers: when you're in an airport, or if you're on an airplane itself, never, never, never. I don't know if I have an example here. Maybe I don't. If you're going to charge your phone, have you seen in the airports these charging stations? Do not charge it. I never use these. I'll go find a wall outlet before I use a charging station, especially one that uses the USB plug-in. Do not ever, 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 if I leave you with one simple trick, do not plug your USB phone charger into an airplane or into a charger in a charging station in an airport, because that's a data port. Data's moving when you come across. Somebody, an intel service doesn't have to hack you, doesn't have to do surveillance on you. You're plugging everything in your phone or your laptop right into their suck it in station. So use your head, use a electrical plug instead on the outside of that. Okay, very simple little tip there. The other thing to be alert for is elicitation. Now, I do all big classes on elicitation. Elicitation is basically that subtle extraction of information from someone over a very seemingly innocuous, simple conversation. This happens all the time. Hotel bars are notorious for being the place, particularly at trade shows, for someone to elicit you for, "Hey, what are you doing here? Hey, who do you work for? Oh, what kind of new projects you working on? Hey, maybe there's something that our companies could partner up on. Are you working on anything new? You doing anything in this country? anything of that matter. So be very cautious of people who come up and ask you questions about yourself. And I know everybody says, "Oh, well, I'm street smart, I'm savvy, I'm a world traveler." Let me give you a little intel officer trick about people. I'm sorry, my dog is the barking. We have a worker coming in. Sorry about that. A little trick to know if somebody's listening to you. Usually, they will do what's known as giving to get. So Sun Tzu, let me give you a good Sun Tzu quote. Sun Tzu says, to defeat your enemy, first offer him help so that he slackens his vigilance. To take, one must first give. Basically, that means sort of the old Trojan horse analogy. Beware of strangers bearing gifts. Beware of someone offering information about themselves, which then you feel you have to reciprocate. Now, I know maybe some other people from other countries on this call may not understand what I'm saying, but in the United States, if you know Americans, particularly folks from the Midwest or people from the South, I'm a Midwestern guy in the United States. I'm originally from Michigan. There is this need, this feeling that we need to reciprocate. So if somebody tells us about themselves and their kids, we need to tell them about ourselves and our kids, even if we don't want to. We just feel like it's obligation. Or if people talk about their profession or what they're doing with their business, and then they ask us about ourselves, we feel the need to do it as well. So Americans are very naive when maybe it comes to this. Maybe you know a few other cultures out there as well. But yeah, we definitely, particularly folks from the Midwest, we fall for this niceness sort of routine. So, all right, well, getting back to our trip. So let's say you've landed in a country. You're now in a taxi. And, you know, I've always gotten a kick. All the places that I've gone to and a lot of the countries that I traveled to for my job, I was a declared intelligence officer. So as soon as I landed in the country, everybody in the country knew that, hey, this guy works for the U.S. government. So I would be, I get special taxis, let's say. My taxi driver either had perfect English and was one of these guys who would say, "Oh, yes, I will be your taxi driver for this entire trip. For $20, I'll be your reliable guy, and I'll take you everywhere for just $20. And what's he doing is he's not looking for work. He's looking to keep tabs on you because he's probably serving as a source or an asset for an intelligence service. He's kind of like a snitch. And he reports on where you're going, what times you're going there, who you're meeting with, phone calls you may be having in the back seat with your headquarters back home, your suppliers, your dealers, your vendors, whatever it may be. They may have recording devices in the taxi. I mean, it's all a real deal thing. So don't think that it's not. You get to your hotel room, and I know a lot of people on this call work in the hospitality hotel industry. You are really in a difficult spot these days because the ability to use wireless cameras, audio devices is really, really amazing these days, the capabilities. There's been a lot of cases in our security business. We get hired all the time. Go sweep a room before a VIP, a CEO, a president, somebody stays in that room. Well, what usually happens is somebody will go, they'll check into a Ritz-Carlton or Four Seasons or one of these top hotels in advance, maybe a month in advance, and they'll plant some real hidden, what we call pinhole cameras in the wall. You can never detect them unless you have equipment, and even the equipment's not foolproof. They may turn it on, they may have it shut off, and then when the person, VIP, arrives in the room a month later, they can turn it on and collect in any kind of awkward situations, awkward conversations, business conversations, whatever it may be, very difficult. And then maybe they check in a month afterwards and they retrieve the data or the recording devices. So, and that's just for business. There's also obviously the perverts out there. I mean, it's really becoming a problem now of these hidden bathroom cams and all that kind of stuff. So you really, really have to protect yourself when you are traveling, and you really need to have good security protocols when you are in hotels. To that end, I always tell a funny story of when I was in Bangkok. I was in Bangkok and I went to my hotel room, and the hotel safe, every hotel's got a safe. It was locked, and I was going to put something in there, and the guest before me had locked it. So I called the front desk. They sent up a 15-year-old kid, and the kid hit 000 pound, and the safe door pops open. And I said, "How'd you know the combo for the safe?" He goes, "Sir, every every safe in the hotel has that combination as an emergency thing in case somebody locks the door. So I always joke, if a 15-year-old kid knows that in the hotel, then certainly the intel service or your business competitors know it as well. And then lastly, I want to talk about the threat for you guys, or even gals, I guess, and that's the honeypots. The Russians they sort of invented this of having the pretty girl knock on your door at 2 a.m. saying, "Oh, how would you like a massage?" or "I'm with the hotel," blah, 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 blah. They go in, they get a man, a woman, whatever, in a compromising position. And then maybe like a month later, that person gets an email at their office. They open it up and it's a video or a picture of them with this massage therapist with a note. Unless you'd like to see unless your wife would like to see this, your boss, your church, why don't you give us the plans for your new project or your proposal costs, whatever you're doing. So it happens. It's a real thing. Okay, before I move in to my case study, I should pause again. I know we're running short on time here, so let me go back to Lisa and see how we're doing.
We're doing great so far. I know we have quite a few questions for you, Luke. This is truly fascinating and very scary. So our first question from our audience is, if I do not carry sensitive material or secrets on my phone or laptop, do I have anything to worry about?
Good question. So yes and no. So a lot of the folks that we deal with, when we have clients that go to big CEOs that go to China or someplace else, what they will typically do is carry with them a sanitized travel laptop. So they'll have a phone that only has certain contacts that if it is stolen, hacked, or whatever, it does not compromise them. Same with a laptop. However, sort of as I gave as the last example, if you are a person of interest, meaning that you have access, a person of interest is somebody with access. That is always the number one question that intelligence officers ask. Does this person have access? They may not be the CEO. They may not be the top scientist. They could be a secretary. They could be an intern. As long as they have access to something within that corporation or organization, whatever it may be, that is of interest, they have access to it. So even though they might not be a person traveling with a sensitive laptop or data, if they are a person who is close to something of value, there is still a threat of surveillance, threat of blackmail, threat of elicitation, threat of recruitment, meaning that, hey, and this one happens a lot. I joke with Jihan a lot about this. We talked about this years ago. How many college professors are such easy targets? They're suckers. Because what do? You call up a college professor and you say, "I just read your book. I just read your published paper, your article. I think it's fascinating. If I paid you $10,000, would you come to Dubai and give a speech?" And the professor, "Oh, yeah, fly me first class on Emirates or whatever to come over." You give a speech and they're like, "Wow, that was a great speech. Do you consult?" And as soon as they get you with the hook, "Do you consult?" You got them. You got the hook in. And before you know it's, "Hey, you've got a relationship with so-and-so. Do you think that you could?" And we always kind of joke that in the academic world, academics share. That's an academic thing, is sharing information. I get it. It makes sense. But I also like to say there's honor among thieves too. So you got to be careful of what exactly you're sharing, because what may be honest, shareable material to you may be of value to a competitor, over here instead. So it's a fine line. You can't say it's a black and white world. It's very, very gray when we get into this. But in the academic world where things are seen as, "Oh, everybody knows that," they really don't. They really don't. That's why research is so valuable. Yeah.
Well, I know we have a lot of intercollegiate and international collaborations, and now I'm very cautious. So what are your thoughts about stealing information from our conversations in chat apps like WhatsApp? Should we stop using them? Could this ever be used against us? Can we actually trust WhatsApp and applications like that?
Now, great question. So before WhatsApp became known or bought by Facebook for $19 billion by Zuckerberg, a lot of Americans didn't know what WhatsApp was. Now, WhatsApp was very popular in Latin America. It was very popular in Brazil as a communications tool because it allowed you free communications. It was very, very popular in Europe prior to anybody in America knew about it as well. And at the time, it was very secure. it has sort of ceased since it was, and again, I don't want to get a lawsuit from Facebook, but I don't think it has maybe the same secret security that maybe it had previously. Now there's new ones out there like what is it, Signal, and these other ones out there as well. These other conversation chat apps. But my advice to anybody: do not say on a recorded line, do not type or text or email anything that you would not want that conversation to be seen on the front page of the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, the Washington Post, Financial Times, whatever it is. You have to be more cognizant about what you are saying that you think is a secret conversation. Because frankly, with the ability to record and document, there is no secret conversations anymore. I mean, it almost has to be face-to-face if you're going to get sensitive. So be very alert, even if you're talking to a friend or somebody, something that you think is a casual conversation. Because hackers, again, for blackmail, you look at all these celebrities, they hack in and they get naked photos of celebrities. Jeff Bezos, richest man in the world. There's naked pictures of him, and he was held for blackmail for that. So it can happen to absolutely anybody. So just be alert of what you're typing or texting or anything these days.
I think that's excellent advice. We do have about 4 minutes left. I know we have a few more questions. As a business owner working on a patent, should I be paranoid about my information being stolen?
Yes. yes, you should. Now, the patent office, they try to do the best job they can of keeping things secure. My advice to you is, if you are going to submit for a patent, make sure that everything that you are building, designing, whatever it is right now, you're doing in a closed environment, build it on a computer, perhaps that doesn't have a Wi-Fi connection, have a standalone computer for any of that thing. And if there is a way that you can hand carry, manually transfer, send in a secure portal for a patent, that would be a lot safer than sharing your ideas over the internet with colleagues or anything like that. But patents are a big, I wish I could tell you there was a perfect answer for keeping them secure, or even I trademark everything, copyright everything, but come on, enforcing it at the end of the day is really, really difficult.
Well, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm also going to let you have the final word because we only have 2 minutes left. But is espionage only done by governments? Is it only carried out by governments?
No, it's funny. It used to be, I would say, 90% before, and before I'm talking about our post-pandemic world, even in the last couple of years, 80 to 90% was all done with a state sponsor hand involved. Now, I think the criminal element of it has just proliferated so much that what I like to call private collectors, people who they don't care about your business or your patent, they're just going to steal it anyway, and then they're going to put it up for bid on the dark web and have people bid for it. They don't know if what they've stolen is valuable or not. They frankly do not know. So they're just going to suck in as much as they can and then just sell it at auction on the dark web, and hopefully there's a buyer for it. So my answer is state sponsor is still number one, hands down. China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, even friendly Israel, India. It happens. But the increase of private collectors, which I feel is almost more dangerous, is growing every day, and you do need to be alert to it.
Well, thank you so much for your time and this wealth of knowledge. And I think everyone who has participated in this this series is definitely going to be more cautious about what they write, how they write it, where they send it, what they plug into. I think the takeaways are invaluable, and hopefully going forward, we can all work together to have a more secure and safe transaction process across our industries. On behalf of all of us here at GLOSERV, thank you so much for your time, Luke. It was incredible. We really appreciate you. And thank you all who attended.
No, my pleasure. Thank everybody out there. I wish all of you to stay safe and vigilant out there. I apologize I didn't get to the case study. I have so much information to share with you and things like that. If I can leave you with one bit of parting advice, though, that I like to tell people is, the threat is real, and there are tactical steps that you can take. But really, to protect yourself, to protect your organization, your business, your supply chain, you need a strategy. It's got to be more than just little tactics here and there. You need an overarching strategy to protect yourself, and it is something you need to think about. So if anybody has questions, feel free. I don't know if my email's in there. Anybody, I know I didn't get to everything, but please feel free. Bencie at SMI Consultancy, and I'm happy to chat further.
Thank you so much again. And everyone have a wonderful day and stay safe.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.